everybody. So nice to see you all here. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jody Stidham, and I'm a managing director in our automotive practice at Deloitte. And I'm really excited to be here today. I'm joined by two very distinguished leaders in the automotive business. Ed Olson, who is the co-founder and CEO of May Mobility, and Karen Langona, who is head of strategy and business development in the automotive division of AWS. Also excited to say that just yesterday we announced a new alliance relationship with May Mobility, and we've enjoyed an alliance relationship with AWS for several years now. So I'm really excited to have you all join us today. I've watched the last couple of panels, and we've talked about the unprecedented change that we're all experiencing in automotive, and what better place to be than at CES to talk about a topic today such as leadership and the importance of leadership in navigating this unprecedented change, the agility, the resiliency, some would say the grit and the grace that's required to navigate the unprecedented change that we're experiencing, including kind of the demands of the consumer. Right, so I'm really excited to hear your insights and perspectives today about how to lead through all of this change and some of the lessons you've learned that I think the audience could enjoy, given the roles. So, Ed and Karen, why don't we just start with a brief, overview about each of the roles you play and what are some of the things you're doing to lead in this future of mobility environment?
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you who don't know, May Mobility builds autonomous vehicles. We work with public transit agencies across the planet. We're in 10 cities today. 2 of those are operating without safety drivers. We'll be launching more soon, so hang in there. For me, one of the main challenges from a leadership perspective is that the technology on the one hand, which is where we spend most of our time, can actually turn into a lot of different applications. It could turn into autonomous personally owned vehicles, or it could turn into robo-taxis. But one of the biggest challenges for us has been to think about what is the world that we want to end up in with this technology. And it turns out I don't think it's either of those. I don't want the world filled with millions and millions of autonomous personally owned vehicles that are adding to congestion and taking up space parking. I also don't think robo-taxis are the solution either. And so for us, a lot of the leadership has been being able to say, yes, we got the technology, it's really cool, but we want to deploy it in a way that we think is going to make cities more beautiful and sustainable. And that's affected our go-to-market strategy and the partnerships that we built along the way.
Awesome. Karen?
And AWS is Amazon Web Services, for those who don't know, a cloud provider. And we are very focused on the industry. So we have our industry verticals that helps our automakers, suppliers to innovate. And by innovate means we are seeking to bring them the parity between the cloud and the car. Which will allow them to innovate faster, bring new feature developments to the roads of today, make the life of the software engineers, vehicle engineers easier, increase safety because you'll be able to do a lot of testing virtually, and also help them to face the increased costs that they have today. Even from a market perspective, as you see the borrowing cost, the higher cost of vehicles that pose a lot of challenges for automakers and suppliers. So the cloud really wants to provide a benefit for innovation. And to what Ed's saying, bringing people together because you do allow your teams to work globally and collaborate in the same culture of innovation.
Awesome, I love it. So I just heard sort of a bit of agility, collaboration, along with innovation in there. How would you each describe your leadership style?
I have two attributes or things that I really look for and that I try to bring out in my team. The first is what I call an informed contrarian. So I think that it's really important to not just be on autopilot and to do what everyone else in the industry is doing. We don't have the capital resources of Waymo, so if we tried to build our company the way Waymo did, that would probably be a recipe for disaster. So being contrarian is really valuable, but you can't just be contrarian for the sake of being contrarian. It's got to come from a deep understanding of what other people are doing, why they're doing it, and what parts of that strategy might apply to you, and which ones you should leave on the in the trash bin. So that's something that I look for in all of my team, and I think we've done a really good job in terms of charting our own course, being our own company. And today, it's been a difficult journey for many AV companies, but I think us really holding true to what we thought was important has panned out well. And the second thing that I really look for is a little more generic. It's activation. And I think we all know people in our lives who are activated. The people who, if you just get out of their way, they're going to run with the ball and they're going to do great things. And the challenge for that, especially for me as a leader, as a former professor and a admittedly sort of kind of know-it-all kind of pain in the butt, is that I need to make sure that they don't think that I already have the answer, right? That I may have an opinion, but I need them to feel like they own their organization, that they own their strategy, because if they're motivated about it, they're going to do a much better job.
I love it.
And I will construct on that as a segue in terms of, as a leader, that your team thinks that you know all. And I fully agree that you want them, they are the specialists. You hire the smart people to help you drive that vision. And at Amazon and AWS, we are led by leadership principles. One of them is they are right a lot, which means this is the view that I have today. But if you bring me data points, I have to be a leader that is capable and able to listen to you, my team, to listen to the signals of the customer. So I want to build that, yes, the leader doesn't know everything, and I do lead by that, like questioning, and I want my team to own it. The second for me is really, are we solving a problem for the customer or for the user, or are we solving because we love the technology, correct? Like, I think this is the second point as a leader. When they come super excited with something, my question is, what is the one at least problem that we are working for, solving for the customer, either simple or bigger? And customer could be an automaker, it could be the driver, it could be the rider, correct?
I'll tack on to that, because I think one of the things we've seen in the AV space are companies that get into R&D mode. And they start spending so much capital, billions and billions of dollars, before they've ever had a meaningful contact point with the customer. And so the simple question is, like, how do you know that you're building the right thing if you're not actually going out and talking to the customers? And I think we took this to an extreme. So May was founded in 2017. I think within the first 9 months, we had our first paying customer in Detroit. And at that point, like, our vehicles were not that capable, right? We had like 6 guys and with 9 months of work on it. But we really prioritized that. Let's get a customer in front of us. Let's figure out how we turn on the flow of learning. And it has radically changed our approach to the market. We learned so much about the challenges that cities actually face, and that influenced how are we going to prioritize wheelchair accessible vehicles. That was not on my radar initially, but you talk to the city transportation planners, like, are you thinking about accessibility? And you're like, no, we weren't, but we are now.
Yeah, I love that. I heard a quote yesterday, great minds don't think alike, and I think it serves as a good reminder that diversity of thought and challenging some of that thinking is really important, given the massive amount of investments going into this area right now. I want to continue the thread on innovation. You're both leading amazing innovation at your companies. What do you do to motivate and inspire that action and that continued energy? We're in an industry that's just constantly evolving. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I think most engineers, I'll answer this from the engineer perspective, want to see their fingerprints on the real world. They want to see the connection between what they do and something that changes in the world. And this is where a startup has a huge advantage. Every single one of our engineers, we only have about 40 core autonomy engineers. Every single one of them can say, oh yeah, I made that work. Oh yeah, I contributed to that. And that's a very different dynamic than when you're in a much, much larger engineering organization where you are engineer number 27 on the traffic light detection team. that is not as exciting. And so that's been a great way to attract talent that we get people coming to May who want that opportunity for direct personal impact, and that's one of the things we can provide them.
Awesome.
And I would say it's the same for cloud development. We have software engineers, and I can even use our CEO today, Matt Garman, who started with the company creating one of our services is S3. So he's very proud to say, I had my finger in that service. And it's the same when we innovate with our automakers and suppliers, the sense that they have from their team, for an ownership, and I want to be there. I want to make the difference. So I think the fostering innovation for me is one, you do have to pass the message, but be really truth that you have to take risks. It's impossible to innovate without bearing or facing failure. You won't be able to get the straight ball on the first shoot. So and it's not natural to any human. We don't want to celebrate our failures, let's be honest. But it's a learning that you have to go through. And so there are lots of frameworks, but as a leader, not to penalize when we fail, but what did we learn and how can we quickly turn those learning lessons in maybe our next progress.
I'll add to that I very much agree that when learning and iteration are a huge part. One of the challenges for me is that I tend to be so far off in the engineering mode of like, okay, what's the next problem? Let's go do it. That I oftentimes forget to celebrate when we do succeed. And that's one of the things I think is also really important, to take those pauses and let the team really celebrate, like, oh my gosh, we just launched our second driver out city. That's amazing. And whereas I'm like, okay, city number 3. How are we going to do this city number 3? And city number 4 are on the deck. So I think we got to balance both of those.
I love that. So strategy versus transparency. Can you talk a little bit about the importance as a leader in making sure your teams are well informed and embrace your strategy, and for you to be open and transparent about the road ahead?
Yes, I think smart people are incredible BS detectors. And if they smell BS, you're going to lose their trust, and that goes very, very fast. What's the expression that trust grows by inches and dies by feet? And so I think it's really important to always err on the side of sharing more about what's going on in your head and what's the why and what are the challenges and things that you worry about. When I started off as a CEO, I had this mental image of the Superman CEO, the one that would come into every meeting and always know the answer. You kind of rip off the shirt and super CEO. And okay, here's how we're going to do. You do this and you do this, and all the problems are solved. And I charge out of the office and everybody's like, that guy's amazing. And you guys are laughing because that's a terrible, terrible way to try to build a team. And so a lot of what I've had to learn over time is to be vulnerable and to be able to say, like, oh my gosh, I'm really worried about this problem. What are we going to do about it? And the great thing is that every time I sort of opened up a little bit more, to be vulnerable, like I'm not the super CEO that I thought maybe I should be, I was rewarded by engagement and more trust and a sense of safety and feeling like I wasn't carrying the world on my shoulders all on my own, but that the whole team was there for me.
I love it.
And to build on that is you really work with your team maybe to assess risk. Like, yes, how deep is this risk, correct? Is something that we can made a bad decision but recover from it, or there is a huge impact. Of course, if it is safety related, it's a huge impact. We're talking about lives. But if it is something we may lose a couple of hours or we may be delayed by X. So it's really that assessment in terms of what is the severity of the decision there. And to Ed's point, being vulnerable to say, I don't know the answer. Let's do a risk assessment here together and get the data points for us to decide collectively, not to, for me as a leader, come later and say, I told you. Because that's a terrible approach as well, as I think from a leadership, from fostering innovation.
Amazon is famous for the type 1 versus type 2 decisions too.
Yeah,
You should
one-way door, two-way door decision. Yes, when it's a one-way door means, as I said, if it is safety related, if it is a decision, there is a true impact for the brand, for the company, for the customer. We call it a one-way door. It requires a much more elaborate approach. A two-way door, which is intuitive, like you opened the door, went there, tried, didn't work well, or not the results you were expecting, and then you can come back maybe with a few bruises or learnings, as I said, but it's still, it is the way to learn. It has been the culture, but even in our lives, if you take that approach, I think it's really helpful.
I love it. So we're here to talk about software-defined vehicles, and that seems to be the big theme, of the show, along with AI. Some say true software-defined vehicles are out of reach, especially for legacy OEMs and suppliers who have, massive organizations and can't get out of their own way sometimes. How are you dealing with that, and kind of how do you see overcoming some of these organizational challenges?
I'll say for us, it has been collaborating with our customers and suppliers to help them on the innovation journey. We usually offer to work what we call working backwards from the customer, which is really the same process that we use internally to show, okay, this is the problem they are facing. Maybe they take too long to be able to release a new feature, or they are trying to develop a new vehicle architecture that so they can leverage for multiple, to expand their lineup. All the changes in centralizing processing for the vehicles. Which is one, help them to innovate together. Two, as to really show that sometimes it is from a cost perspective, because if they are investing in a lot of infrastructure, and I'm talking about simple SDKs that you have to build and put on the engineer's desk so they can test and develop features, versus more expensive vehicle prototypes. So if you can move all of that to virtualized world or simulation, you can run on the cloud multiple times, you can choose your data, then you show the benefit and you help them assess the risk. It is really like organizational change in a changing mindset to be able to embrace. And I totally understand when people are 20, 30 years doing in a certain way, very successful brands that we have on the market, it's really hard to say, why would I change? So I'm not minimizing how easy or hard it is. I'm saying you have it to work and show the benefits of the change. I truly believe, and I see data points, that software-defined vehicle is on the rise. I think we will see more and more engineering workbenches being adopted. Usually, the larger volume automakers are faster to adopt. Maybe they have less, they are less risk averse, or they are seeing what we call the OEMs born on the cloud. It is the way they started, correct? And maybe Ed can add to that, because May Mobility probably was born on the cloud.
Yeah, one of the things we do is we work very closely with OEMs. We currently work very closely with Toyota, and now Technobus we just announced the other day. And those kinds of partnerships are really important, because the only way to deploy an autonomous vehicle that can really complete a safety case, you have to work with those engineers hand in hand to go and understand how every single failure could result in either a good outcome or a bad outcome. And we, of course, encounter these sort of legacy systems, and there's so much inertia. But the thing that someone told me once is that, inertia, when you have this legacy kind of system, it can be there for a couple different reasons. Sometimes it's just religion. Like, well, this is the way we've always done it, so that's the way we do it. But usually when you peel the onion back a little bit and you start saying, well, okay, but why this in particular? Oh, well, yeah, because back in this vehicle model 12 years ago, we were actually solving this problem. Well, what about this over here? Oh, yeah, that's because if we have a failure over here, then this system can take over, and then, we preserve our safety case. So when you start poking at these things, there are reasons for almost everything that's in there. And so I think this is where you have those constructive conversations directly with the engineers, and they can give you the sort of decoder ring of why things are the way they are. And once you're having a conversation about that, then you can talk about what's the path forward. Where do we want to be? One of the things that I'm a big fan of is there's this creative tension model in leadership, where you start off by saying, where do we want to be? What's the future? And this would be, oh, well, we want to have a vehicle that we can iterate really quickly, where we can test everything in software, and where the cost of the vehicle is lower. And everybody looks around and is like, yeah, let's do that. Cheaper, better, gooder. That'd be great. And then you pause and you say, okay, but where are we today? Oh, well, we're here now where it's a 6-year cycle for every model, and changes are really expensive. And then you can, but having aligned on that future state, now you can start to unpack, why are things the way they are? How do we start moving this forward bit by bit?
If you allow me two more thoughts that I thought, as you, the suppliers are innovating. So I can even say here at CES, the announcement from a plug for them, Electrobit, Valeo, on the products they're bringing to market related to software-defined vehicle is really part of what Ed was saying. Like this part of the vehicle provided by the supplier, but by the supplier innovating, by the supplier getting software solutions that are safety and ISO certified, it is driving that innovation. Because suppliers is still part of the ecosystem, a super important part, but they are bringing the innovation to the situations. Like this vehicle model now uses this Valeo or Electrobit solution. So you have a different way to approach, or a faster way to bring new features.
Okay, in the time we have left, we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about AI, right? It's everywhere here at the show. Yesterday, we launched our latest global automotive consumer study, and some of the findings revealed that 52% of customers are still concerned with the safety risks associated with autonomous driving vehicles and the use of AI in vehicles. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, especially when it comes to being a leader with your own employees, and how you help them overcome some of the concerns that they might have with AI, and motivate them to be more experiential and try AI and use it more aggressively.
Yeah, I think actually I disagree with the premise of the question. So one of the things that we've learned over time is that we've delivered hundreds of thousands of rides to everyday people. And in that entire time, I think we've had one person walk away from a vehicle and say, I'm not getting an autonomous vehicle today. And the fundamental sort of principle that I've taken away from this is that on a day-to-day basis, when you're out, you're waiting, you're trying to get to point B, you've got a doctor's appointment, you're thinking about what's the next thing I need to do. The typical consumer optimizes for convenience. They're not optimizing for safety. Now, that doesn't mean that safety is not important. It means actually it's all the more incumbent upon us as the people who are designing that vehicle to make sure that we are making really smart choices on the safety side. But I think that most people, when you are solving a real transportation problem, they're going to get in the car if that car is there and it's ready to take them to their destination, because they're going to optimize for convenience every time. And unfortunately, we see this with some of the safety challenges we see in the AV industry or in self-driving products, where maybe the people are over-optimizing for convenience with technology that's not quite there yet. I think it's a good illustration of how that can happen. But again, I think the solution here is still the same, that consumers may be optimizing for convenience, so we need to be doubly careful about safety.
And I agree that they are seeking for convenience and personalization. For me, AI, it is like it is already a utility. You will find everywhere. You can talk about it because we're focusing on automotive, but what amount of AI do you have on the phones that we carry today? And how our location is tracked? I'm not sure if people use the same measures when they talk about the phones, that we are highly dependent, lots of apps. I question if every one of us have the right settings on our phone to really protect our privacy, correct? But it is on our hands. And I think for the automotive, it's very similar. You can offer a certain level of personalization. You can allow the customer to choose what they share, what they don't share, correct? But AI, I don't think we'll stop it. It brings a lot of benefits, but it does need the guardrails to be safely used for the data, which there is the concern of how many fake pictures are causing a lot of damage, emotional damage to people. You could say there is a lot of the good and the bad there. We need to separate them.
Love it. Great. So in the automotive business, one of the things we all have in common, we've all been closely tied in some way, shape, or form to college campuses, right? Karen, you used to teach at one, and Ed, you're very closely aligned in your business model and working. So how do we attract and retain more diverse talent in automotive?
One of the challenges that I saw when I was a faculty member at the university, I participated in a program that was focused on getting underrepresented students into grad school. And one of as part of this, I would go to historically black colleges and universities and teach and work with their students. And what I oftentimes found is that they're brilliant people there, incredibly capable, that haven't had all the opportunities that some of us have had. You know, where we graduate from high school, we go to a great university, and there's research programs for us to just reach out and dive into. But I also found even there that the pipeline, so it's the preparation that some of those had going into the HBCUs were put them at a huge disadvantage. So by the time I was going into university, I'd had multiple calc classes and AP physics, and I was well prepared. But the schools that many of these students go to don't prepare them in the same way, and they're just at a massive disadvantage on day one. And when they want to move into an R1 research university, and now they're competing with people who've been in really high-level math and physics classes all along, it's not because they're not capable, but they have just not had access to the same teaching education that many other people have. This is, I think, the problem. And so it's really a pipeline problem that we need to start early and make sure that these opportunities are available, and also to make sure everyone knows what is possible. And I think if you grow up in an environment where everyone is struggling to get by, you end up with a survivalistic mentality of like, okay, here's what good looks like for me is I'm going to get a job, it's a 9-to-5 job, and I'm going to have an apartment, it's going to be great. But we need to also show them like what is amazing, what can they really work for, what's going to be exciting and motivating.
I agree with the motivation on what problems you could be part of the solution. It is the motivation, but also help them to have a support when they are in a large company, who they can go to. They feel they are supported in their learning journey. And even for people who are not working at AWS or Amazon today, there are a lot of free courses out there that can complement your learning online, not only through Amazon, but from several, or even from Harvard, from other institutions that can give you maybe another perspective. The other element is for our leaders, I invite the leaders to think of the culture of competition, which I think the younger generation, they want to be leaders, but not leaders like us, in the sense that you work 24 hours and you think that is great when you say, I didn't take any vacation this year. I think those are the values, like the new type of leadership that we have to promote as part of the company and to attract and retain the talent. I don't think the younger generation are seeking to be a leader just I think they say live to work, not work to live, or something like this.
I agree with that 100%. One of the things that has occurred to me as I've been hiring lots of people is that people who are really passionate, the kinds of people that you want working, tend to be passionate about more than one thing. And if you try to suck up all of their time, that, oh, your life is now May Mobility, your passion is now May Mobility, forget all those other things you're interested in, they've got a half-life of about 9 months before they're like, but I used to be able to play my violin in spare time, and now I don't have time for that. You have to create time for people to pursue all of their passions, because if you want passionate people, they're going to have multiple interests. So we have to balance that.
And that helps with being creative, honestly. Like being exposed to other experiences, not just I work 24 hours. The innovation comes from how you tackle a problem differently.
Yeah. So Ed, Karen, your insights have been awesome today. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed kind of your purposeful contributions today. I think you're both leading at some of the heart of the business issues that are happening at the forefront of mobility right now, and your leadership contributions are well noticed. Just as we wrap up today, what one piece of advice would you give other leaders in the audience as they navigate the year ahead?
That's a tough one. But I think I would come back to that informed contrarian aspect. Find something where you are knowledgeable about a subject, but where you have a point of view, and don't mind advocating for it. Go out there and try to convince people about your point of view. And maybe you're right, maybe you're wrong, but that is a lot more fun than just kind of going with the flow.
And I encourage you all take more risks. As I said, evaluate the risks that you're taking, but really take it. I think we have the worst regrets is when we didn't try it. So embrace the risk.
I love it. Such great advice. Thank you all for joining us. It's been fun. Really glad to have you. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.